Different Maxime will join us when he can. I just went back to the industry committee from a few years ago. So welcome to this meeting. It's number 49 of the Standing Committee on Science and Research. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order on June 23rd, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room, and we also have members remotely using the Zoom application. And we have a witness on Zoom as well today. So a few comments on Zoom as well, that choose your interpretation. You have the choice in the bottom of your screen between floor, English, or French. Mute yourself unless you're speaking, and when you are speaking, if you can speak through the chair, and that goes for everybody, please. And also a reminder that we've already done the reminder that addressing the comments through the chair. So pursuant to Standing Order 10831 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, the committee commences its study of the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. It's now my pleasure to welcome our witnesses today, and thank you for coming up and preparing for today's discussion. First of all, in the room we have from McMaster University, Colin Coulter-John, who's a PhD candidate, and also from Support Our Science from Winnipeg, I think I heard. We have Mark Johnson, who's chair of the board from Support Our Science. So each of you will have 5 minutes to give us your remarks, after which we'll go to the rounds of questions, and I'll start signaling you when we're at time. So if we could start off with Colin Coulter-John from McMaster, please. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the Standing Committee on Science and Research for inviting me to give my testimony, or the testimony of my experience as a graduate student in Canada. I thought it best to begin by addressing that McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it itself is located on the traditional territories of Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations, and within lands protected by the Dishes One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Next, I'd just like to open by giving an overview of who I am and what my research is. So I'm a Hamilton native, currently studying at McMaster University in the engineering physics stream for my PhD, specializing in the nuclear stream, and I primarily focus on modeling the introduction of small modular reactors into Ontario's energy mix. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. I believe I may have exhausted my partner's patience on the topic of nuclear reactors at home, so it would be best to get it out of my system while I'm here. With the support of my amazing supervisor, McMaster University, MyTax, and other research funding groups, I've been fortunate enough to have opportunities to collaborate with international professors and pursue my research abroad, such as spending 9 weeks in Japan last summer as part of the MyTax JSPS Global Link Award. However, while amazing opportunities such as this may exist on the individual level, I've found that graduate funding as a whole is an area worthy of rehabilitation in Canada if we are truly seeking to ground innovation domestically and support a new generation of industry-leading experts. For almost the entirety of my undergraduate career, I knew that grad school was a route that I wanted to follow. That being the case, I still spent the vast majority of the time looking into pursuing my graduate career in the United States rather than Canada, largely due to the immense funding opportunities that exist for both researchers and varsity athletes down south. In the end, though, the opportunity to work with a specific professor at Mac shifted my interest back home, and though I'm happy with my decision today, it has not come without its difficulties. For example, I recently purchased a very modest home in Hamilton. I am the only one that I know of among my peers who has been capable of doing so, and I could not have done it without my fiancée sharing the financial burden. She is a registered nurse who has also recently rejoined the academic community to obtain her master's as a nurse practitioner. Unfortunately, as is the reality in today's housing market, my fiancée was unable to begin her graduate career until after we had successfully secured a home together. As Canadian mortgage insurers do not consider my guaranteed graduate and research scholarships to be counted as consistent income even when stipulated as such by my issuing university. Together, with the aid of our respective graduate bursaries and collective funding, as well as all qualified OSAP support, we still would not be able to sustain our current mortgage payments without the part-time jobs that we both hold and balance alongside our full-time education. My fiancé continues to work 12-hour shifts as an RN, and I operate as a part-time bar manager in Hamilton in order to subsidize the mortgage that we otherwise could not afford. Even then, our financial situation, though sustainable, is far from comfortable. And I believe that this remains a best-case scenario for many graduate students seeking to own their own home today. While it may seem obvious that the preferred alternative to this arrangement would be for us to wait until we have finished our respective careers before purchasing a home, this option is rapidly becoming less and less realistic. Housing prices continue to soar out of reach of those of my friends that have yet to purchase a house, and rental prices are scarcely easier to manage. To summarize, while I sincerely appreciate the support that I have received from both my university and all government funding agencies thus far, I believe that this support is quickly becoming insufficient for incoming students. Today, Canadian graduates are seeming to have to make a decision between pursuing higher education or being able to afford adult life. And I feel that this dichotomy is nothing short of detrimental to furthering Canadian-led research and innovation. I do not believe that we can sustain our graduate programs if we're asking young people to put their lives on hold in order to follow us. Thank you again to Mr. Chair and this committee for your time, and I hope that my testimony might help in strengthening Canada's commitment to graduate research.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter-John, for coming to the committee and for your testimony and in a succinct way. I appreciate that. Now we'll go to the next presenter from Support Our Science, Mark Johnson, Chair of the Board. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the invitation to be with you today. I'm speaking to you from Winnipeg, Canada, Treaty 1 land, which is home to many First Nations today and is the homeland of the Métis Nation. For background, I'm a professor of biology at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and the Canada Research Chair of Urban Environmental Science. But today, I'm speaking to you in my role as Chair of the Board at Support Our Science, or SOS for short. SOS is advocating for higher pay for nearly 300,000 graduate students and postdoctoral scholars across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. I'm speaking to you today because stagnation in funding and inadequate federal financial support for graduate students and postdocs is the most important issue in Canadian research and innovation today. I'm not going to restate Support Our Science's requests of the government, which, if you'd like to see them, they were given on the May 9 testimony by Sarah Lafamboise, our executive director, but I'm happy to put them into context if you have any questions about them. So this is an important issue because research at university in Canada drives the discovery and innovation of our nation that fuels our economy. The people doing this work are largely graduate students and postdoctoral scholars. And it's important to put this into context because graduate students is a bit of a misnomer. They're not really students in the traditional sense that you think of students. They are researchers. Their main job is doing research. And at postdoctoral scholars, they've already earned a PhD. They're already among the most highly trained and skilled people in our country. We need these people for Canada to succeed, and we're forcing them into poverty by paying them less than minimum wage. And you're hearing about some of that today from the other testimony. Let me put this into perspective from a personal angle. In 2003, I was a second-year PhD student. The Conservative Party of Canada, in that year, when they were in government, had a bold vision to create a highly trained generation of people that would drive our innovation economy. They created the Canada Graduate Scholarship Program for master's students and doctoral students. They also increased the value of postgraduate scholarships, and they increased the value of postdoctoral fellowships. The following year, in 2004, I was among the very first PhD students to be awarded a Canada Graduate Scholarship. It was worth $35,000 per year. That money, that investment, was transformative for me. With this money, I paid my tuition, my food, and my rent, and the investment allowed me to focus on research. With this increased focus, I was able to make major discoveries about how plants defend themselves against pest insects, and this work has had applications to agriculture, horticulture, and conservation. And for this work, I won the Governor General's Gold Medal and several other awards. This success led to me receiving an NSERC postdoctoral fellowship, which I took to Duke University to learn cutting-edge techniques in molecular biology and genomics. Armed with this new knowledge and these skills, I then started my own laboratory as a professor, eventually at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, where I'm training the next generation of scientists. master's, PhD students, and postdoctoral scholars that are making their own discoveries that are contributing to our country and economy. Now, herein lies the problem. It's been 20 years since I did my PhD, and the federal support for graduate and postdoctoral researchers I received has changed by $0. Now, imagine if you haven't received a raise in 20 years. I think most of you would have left your profession by now, and that's exactly what's happening. The Canadian research system is in crisis. Our brightest minds in Canada are leaving the country in droves. In 2019, the McGill Trace study discovered that 38% of all freshly minted PhDs in Canada are leaving for other countries where they are better compensated, mainly in the US and Europe. That's nearly 3,700 PhDs leaving every year that we've just invested in. That investment was intended to drive our innovation in our economy. And when they leave, that's a lost investment. And I've estimated that's worth $740 million every year. So that study was in 2019. The problem's even worse today. Essentially, Canada has become the world leader in training people to leave our nation. That's why increased federal support for graduate students and postdocs is the most important issue in Canada today.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And now we'll move to our round of questions. And first of all, I'll welcome Kelly Block from the Conservative Party. It's good to see you here. And the first questioner from the Conservatives will be Corey Tucker. Please, Corey.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for our witnesses for appearing today. Mr. Johnson, you talked about there was a 0% increase, but we know that that's not entirely true, because when you factor in inflation, right now we're suffering from a 30-year high in inflation. Students are, it's worse than a 0% increase. It's a decrease because less dollars goes further now than in the past. Have you heard of other students having to use the food bank or changing their living environments to somehow get by on the same amount of money that you received 20 years ago?
In inflationary terms, you're exactly accurate. The values are now much less than they were 20 years ago, of course. Yes, there are many students that are in dire straits. Many students are using food banks. Some students, if you go to the website for Support Our Science, there's lots of graduate students and postdocs that are telling their stories there, and it's heartbreaking. Some of the students are having to live in vans, so they actually are homeless. And this is why I say the system's in crisis. These are the people that are supposed to be our leaders for the future. They're supposed to be leading our innovation and discovery in Canada for the benefit of Canada, and we are forcing them into poverty. And I think that's not right.
Thank you very much for that. Switching gears to our other witness today, Colin, thank you very much for appearing here in person. I understand that you're working on nuclear fuel research, and I just want to, it sounds like you had a professor that had a connection with you or impact with you, and that's why you went to McMaster. In general, though, what role is the federal government to encourage more people to study in the sciences, and especially with nuclear science?
I would say personally, my belief is that the allocation of funds through bodies such as MyTax and NSERC has been crucial to the growth of STEM at McMaster and at the other universities that I've seen. I do think that there is significant funding that exists that students are not made aware of, and whether that comes down to the government needing to speak with the universities more or the universities needing to step up in order to let the students know that this funding is available, I do think that that is one of the largest missteps that seems to exist personally as a graduate student. Beyond that, I'm not too sure of.
There's a role.
Yeah, there's
just
a role.
Changing gears a little bit. I applaud you, as in you. It sounds like you and your finance or your significant other is putting down roots and making go of it, and it sounds like you're I would assume working late nights with a secondary job. Of your other fellow students, how many others are forced into having a evening employment?
I believe a good portion of them usually seek additional hours, whether it be via additional TA roles or additional marketing roles outside of the program, additional research hours. I cannot think of any students that I know of in a master's or PhD role right now who do not either work with a company through their PhD to increase their overall funding, or have not sought additional working hours from their professor. I think that tends to be the most common role. I grew up working in the restaurant industry alongside school, so that was an easy option for me to kind of go alongside my research career. But most or all of the graduate students who I know tend to seek additional work hours in some form or another.
Could you add a little bit of your personal stories of other students that are struggling with inflation right now? We heard earlier our other witness talk about people living in vans and using food banks. What are your other personal stories that you might have heard from other students?
I would say the number one that I've seen is friends of mine who are in serious committed relationships who very much want to do what I've been fortunate enough to do, move in with their significant other or take the next step of an engagement, who are unable to do so because right now the only housing that they can afford is a 7-person house just off campus where rent is in the hundreds of dollars rather than being 4 figures. So I would say that is probably the example that I've seen reoccurring the most, that I would point to most directly, is somewhat what I mentioned in my opening of other people my age, younger, older, who seem to be putting their life outside of research on hold because research is such a major step in their career, and I don't think that that's sustainable for us to be asking them to do so.
And we understand that with the most recent budget, we have more inflationary gas that's been poured on the fire, and it looks like costs are going up next year as well. What do you think are the next implications of inflation once again setting a new record with students?
About 20 seconds.
So could you just clarify?
It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
What is the next decision that the students will have to make to cope?
I think it very likely tends to be the social side of things, and as the social side of things tend to happen, a lot of students who are already introverted tend to bury themselves more in their work, which we know can have a very dire effect on their mental health. So I think that that overall will have a negative effect if students don't have their social abilities to go and see people outside of research.
Great. Thank you both. And now to Stéphane Lauzon for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your testimony. Let me begin with Mr. Coulter-John. I have seen that you are a water polo athlete, and I imagine that you juggle your sports activities and your academic career. I was once parliamentary secretary for sports, so I know something about the sports scholarships, the athlete scholarships. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you do strike some sort of balance with the graduate scholarships you have? Have you received some for sporting activities? Tell us a bit about the system overall and how you survive within it.
Unfortunately, I have not received any quite some time for water polo. That being said, I do recognize that water polo is a lesser-known sport in Canada, and it is of all the sports where funding is allocated, it is likely very far down on the totem pole, which is something I agreed to when I started to play it decades ago. That being said, though, I believe if we look at the overall body of or the overall recognition of the amount of time that athletes give to sports, the funding in the States completely dwarfs that is available in Canada for anyone from undergrad to graduate research. And the comparison is that funding today for virtually any sport outside of the big 3 or 4 is non-existent outside of perhaps a signing bonus when you start your undergrad.
Donc vous êtes d'accord que revoir le système, que ça soit...
So you would agree to going over the whole system, way back to basically all types of scholarships from the very outset. It would be a good idea to go over the whole system and reconsider it. So is translation working now?
Sorry.
It's not your fault.
Ben, vous savez,
Well, so do you agree with me that the entire scholarship system for athletes in particular and for graduate scholarships in general should be reviewed? We should go over the whole system and see how we could structure it better to recognize sporting activities. For example, water polo, for example, compared to basketball.
We have, I've stopped the clock. We do seem to have some translation problems.
I don't want to
but
lose my
I can
time,
hear it
man.
on mine. But
Yeah, I do apologize. I got about 2/3 of it, and then before the actual question, it cut out.
translator?
Yeah.
stop my clock, Chair?
Yep.
Est-ce que ça fonctionne maintenant?
So is it working now? Can you hear us now in English? Can you hear me in the English channel?
Okay. Clerk will take
It
care of
it
this.
may be your unit. It's working on mine. Around the room, it seems to be working.
Do you want to just try switching?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's shift over a unit maybe.
Years ago.
New Brunswick roots.
On peut recommencer, on peut.
So can we test 1, 2, 3? Do you hear me in English now? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Unless the volume is. I didn't want to touch any settings, but.
Yeah, the volume is down to 0.
Ah, là, je pense.
So how about now? I think perhaps you can hear me now, having turned up the volume. Very good. Thank you very much.
Start the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start the clock after you. After your
I apologize.
From the top, please.
from the top.
I promise the
Once
volume
you
had been
finish,
high
once
on
you
that one
finished
to
your
start.
question,
Yeah.
I'll start the clock.
My
Donc, vous avez
apologies.
mentionné
Take 2 then. You mentioned that water polo scholarships are much less than for other sports, better recognized, and that's important to point out because when someone is in a university combining 2 types of scholarships, including sports scholarships, this counts. Do you think that we should review the entire scholarship system, sports and graduate scholarships, go over the whole thing and rethink it?
I believe that it's fair to have some degree of allocation of funding that's given to each sport based on the popularity of the sport, because that at the end also impacts the amount of money that comes through the entire system. That's the way that funding had been from a government standpoint in the past when I used programs such as Quest for Gold carding from the Ontario government. But at the same time, I do believe that that funding overall does from the ground up does require some degree of rehabilitation, because it seems that there's a stopping point right now somewhere between what the government is allocated and what schools are allocated. And again, I can only speak from my experience here, but as an undergrad and a graduate student, we had gone from some small amount of subsidies at the start in the forms of scholarships to the last 6 or 7 years we are paying to play. At a fairly competitive level, and it's something that, as much as we are very committed and passionate about our sports, it's something that unfortunately most students can't physically afford to do. And much of the burden has been picked up by our alumni association to help with that. But it does feel that overall the students are not receiving really any support in terms of sports scholarships.
OK, thank you. Monsieur Coulter John, en tant que candidat,
Mr. Calderjohn, as a doctoral candidate, the scholarship, graduate scholarships are of direct interest to you. You've mentioned this. Could you give us your opinion on the match between the funds offered and the needs of students? Do you think you're getting enough to be able to succeed as a scholar?
J'ai encore le temps?
Thank you. Do I still have 30 seconds? Very good. Mr. Johnson, as chair of Support Our Science, chair of the board, you have a good overview of the situation. Right now, postdoctoral students and graduate students, you know what's going on. So what is the effect of freezing scholarship amounts on our scientists, and what might the consequences be in future? And I'd like a written answer if you haven't time to give me a full oral answers.
An answer, that would be great, or if you can work it into another answer. Thank you for that, Monsieur Lauzon.
Sorry about that.
Et puis, maintenant, nous avons
Now we will turn to Maxime Blanchet-Jonca. 6 minutes, madam. Sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello to our witnesses. An important study we're carrying out. My first question is for Mr. Johnson. The 1st of May, Support Our Science organized a rally in Quebec and across Canada. And about 50 universities, students, research personnel, teachers, and other supporters got together, rallied to tell the government that it's time to take action to ensure that our best brains live with us. I mean, keeping them on the same salary as they had 20 years ago, this is really impossible for a G7 country. You know, do you know anyone who has the same salary as 20 years ago? I don't know anyone. So the number of student alliances have called for change through Support Our Science. I even held a press conference in the entrance of the House of Commons with 3 organizations at Support Our Science with us, and I've asked all MPs to support higher scholarships. I would like to thank MP Cannings, who was the only MP to join me at that time. Well worth noting. After the enormous organization, the rally that you organized in May, have you had any communications with the current government?
With the current government leading up to and since the May 1 walkout at 46 institutions coast to coast.
Merci, Monsieur Johnson. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous...
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Could you tell us more about what sort of communications you've had with the current government?
Right, so we've spoken to a number of individual MPs. We've also spoken to Minister Champagne's office extensively, and we've also been speaking with Minister Freeland's office, and we were supposed to have a meeting with Minister Freeland on Thursday, but she canceled the meeting.
Merci, Monsieur Johnson. Donc, j'imagine que vous êtes déjà entretenu avec ces gens-là.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So I imagine that you've discussed this with these people in the past. So what I'd like to know is whether you really feel that the government understands the current reality as well as what students are actually living at the postdoctoral and graduate level.
I'm sorry, can you restate the question? I thought...
Pourriez-vous
Gouvernement
do you feel that the government understands how urgent the situation is, how important it is to increase graduate scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships at present?
Yeah, it's an absolutely urgent issue. Minister Champagne and on Thanksgiving said, I hear you, and we are going to address it as soon as possible. And so we saw that as a good faith commitment. We did not see any investment in the fall economic update, and we were disappointed by that, but we saw it as, well, it'll come in budget 2023. And there was nothing that came in budget 2023, which was quite frankly shocking and surprising. I don't understand this seems like an easy win for politically, but more importantly, it seems like an easy win for Canada, since this has such huge impacts on our economy. And the lack of investment is costing the Canadian government probably over $1 billion in people leaving Canada annually right now, $1 billion a year, which is much less than we're actually asking for them to increase it. So why there's a roadblock, I have no understanding of this. It's surprising because it seems like an easy win.
Mr. Johnson, est-ce que vous pouvez nous préciser?
Mr. Johnson, could you tell us exactly what your Support Our Science movement is asking for?
Yeah, so there's 4 specific requests. One is that the value of graduate scholarships increase by 50% in their value and be indexed to inflation moving forward. The second is that the number of graduate scholarships increase by 50% because there has been a doubling in the number of graduate students in the system in the last 20 years. The third request is that the number of postdoctoral fellowships increase by 100%. And the reason for that is because in 2010, the numbers decreased the number of awards by 40%. And at the same time, the number of PhDs in the system have doubled through time. And then the fourth request is to increase the budgets of grants at the 3 tri-agencies by 10% per year for the next 5 years.
Merci,
I am
Monsieur.
surprised that this committee has only recommended a 25% increase, which only brings us to 2015 levels, which is still below the poverty line. So why the committee keeps recommending an increase of 25% is also surprising. And I don't know where that number is coming from. It's not based on any data that I'm aware of.
Merci, Monsieur Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Look, on another topic, much is being said of graduate scholarships, postdoctoral fellowships. Not all students receive these. There's also funding from research chair funding and other funds from, let's say, the NSERC. Could you give us your point of view? If we merely increase graduate and postdoctoral scholarships, is this going to be sufficient or is it not?
We need to invest in both scholarships and fellowships and grants. So there are many students that are supported by scholarships and fellowships, but most students are supported by grants. And that's why it's very important that we do both at the exact same time by the amounts that I was just suggesting right there. 50% increase in the value of scholarships and a 10% increase in the value of the grants per year for the next 5 years.
Great, thank you very much. And now for 6 minutes to Richard Cannings, please. Mr. Cannings.
Well, thank you, and thank you for both the witnesses here today. I'm going to continue on with Dr. Johnson. First of all, thank you for all the work you've put in over the last years on this issue. It's an important one, obviously. Like you say, the most important issue facing science and research in Canada and the federal government. And again, as you say, there's been general surprise from all sorts of people and groups, including myself, that this hasn't been dealt with quickly because, as you say, it would be an easy win. It's very low-hanging fruit. And I'm just wondering if we can go back to the figure that you mentioned, I think $740 million a year as a rough figure. You said it may be more than $1 billion years in lost investment. This is the amount of money we've put into educating our young researchers every year, and that is being lost as they leave the country because other countries seem to recognize their value more than we do. And I'm just wondering if you could comment on that and maybe expand on how that works.
Yeah, so every PhD student in the country ends up doing years of research and training. On average, that's 5.75 years that a PhD student works to become an expert in their field. And we invest a lot in that. On average, that's $35,000 a year that we're investing in them to become some of the best scientists, social scientists, engineers, nuclear physicists, like we were hearing from the other witness. And the intention of that investment, as I understand it, is that it's going to benefit our economy for years to come. And so I see it as problematic when 4 years ago, before everything went crazy with inflation and the pandemic, that 38% of all PhDs were immediately leaving the country, most of them not coming back because they could not get adequate support here in Canada. And in 2019, that was costing our economy $740 million per year. Today, with inflation, that number is going to be much higher. There's been no other study since then. It's almost certainly over $1 billion a year today. For example, from my own lab, the last 4 PhD students, 3 have gone to the US, and there's no hope of bringing them back at this point because they're making much more money. In the US, for example, the equivalent of our scholarships for a PhD student is $65,000 Canadian in the US. 65,000. We're offering 45,000 here. For postdocs, it's $95,000 a year Canadian in the US for the equivalent of what we're offering here, which is 45,000. So there's just a huge discrepancy right now. And, you know, when my daughter, who's going into university right now, is thinking of doing graduate school because she wants to be a physicist, I will tell her to study elsewhere unless things change here in Canada.
And you mentioned the need to increase the grants as well, because most students are paid from the principal investigators, the researchers, out of their own grants. And you know, we've heard from other testimony that universities have been counseled to take on fewer grad students because they end up topping up the income of their grad students, and they just simply can't afford to do that any more than they're doing now. And can you just comment on that? I mean, it looks like not only are students choosing to go elsewhere, but now universities may be forced to accept fewer.
Yes, because of 20 years of stagnation in funding, we're having to find other sources of funding to support the students who just cannot afford to live in cities like Toronto, where I am. And so that's coming from increased teaching. It's coming from increased awards, so coming from our endowments from the universities. As you're hearing, most students are actually now getting part-time jobs when we would, I think, ideally like them to be focusing on their research. And as a result, we are having to take on fewer students. We're at breaking point. I am now actively taking on fewer students as a professor because I can no longer pay them at that minimum level in Canada and expect that to get the top talent. And so I would like to take on more students. I certainly have a lot of students contacting me, but if they're going to have any type of living wage, I have to take on fewer right now, which is going to have a negative impact on innovation discovery in Canada and the short-term and long-term economy.
About a minute left.
Okay, just maybe if you could comment on, you know, although these scholarships and fellowships represent, you know, less than half of the students that are in graduate studies in Canada, what is the effect that the rates that they're getting, these poverty rates, has on kind of setting the bar for other ways the students can be paid, whether it's from the universities through teaching assistantships or whatever? You know, what is the effect of that that's saying this is what the federal government feels is an okay rate to pay students?
Yeah, it's not just about these specific students that are receiving these scholarships and fellowships. Those scholarships and fellowships are setting the level that most universities set their stipends at. And so if, for example, NSERC master's scholarships keep at $17,500, most universities are going to aim for the minimum. Okay. I was just here in Winnipeg at a conference.
I'm sorry, but we're out of time. We're going to have to move on to our next questioner, but thank you for that. Mr. Lobb, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Thanks very much. And first questions are to Mr. Coulter. John, thanks for coming today. The area that you're studying is great because I think 20 years ago there wasn't very much research done in the nuclear field at all. And my question to you is, you'd stated you're doing some research in the small modular reactor field. And I just wondered, is there any company or entity provide any sort of subsidy to you in your research funding to help do what you need to do? Or is it all what you receive through the university and through grants?
So that sort of funding is usually directed towards a research group, which is led by a supervisor, and the supervisor will then kind of allocate those funds as they can. Unlike general graduate scholarships, however, those funds, at least in my experience and to the best of my knowledge, those funds are very often used directly for research purposes, so they can't be allocated to graduate students for general spending or personal spending. The NWMO is very active with my research group because a big part of our research looks at nuclear waste, and so much of our research stipends much of our funding comes from them, but none of it is allocated to the students outside of research-related purposes.
Do you think that, like I know you mentioned NWMO, but do you think that it's maybe in the economic interests of some of these companies like Westinghouse or OPG or Areva or anyone you want to throw out there that they provide direct financial compensation to someone like yourself for the betterment of the industry, betterment of the sector? What do you think?
I think my answer likely has a very obvious bias, but I do think that it would be in their interest overall to do so. I have spoken with groups like CNL who've approached me when I've given seminars or conferences, asking when I'm likely to graduate, when I might be coming into the workforce, and my response to them is I'd be very interested in working for a group like them when I'm done, but I do want to finish my PhD, so at best case scenario, I'm 2 years away from working for them. But if there is work that they can give me that coincides or goes very well with my current research, I would be very interested in taking it on so that there is a relationship forming there, and it could be lucrative for me as well.
I look at it, and maybe I'm naive in the way I'm looking at it, but I'm looking at it, we have this big system, and everybody comes to this committee and says, hey, fix our problem. But they're kind of the problem, in my mind. And I look at it, and I'm like, why would they have a guy working at a bar? He's probably really good at his job at the bar, but why would they have a guy working at a bar when he could go work for Westinghouse on the side instead and perfect the SMR or OPG instead of working at a bar? Nothing against working at a bar. It's great, but you're a PhD guy. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. And if it were to be the option between working in the industry that I see to be my future career and working at the bar, I obviously love my current jobs, but I'll take the one that will build me towards a more successful career. And so I completely agree that I think there should be some incentive for these companies to subsidize the graduate research if such an avenue could be made possible.
Minute and a half. Okay, well, just building on that, like, where do you see the downside? Like, where do you see in the system, the big blobby system at the top, right down to where you are? Like, where do you think the improvements need to be made?
I think there could be more direct action between the government funding groups and the students themselves. Most of the funding right now seems to be kind of done through the university, which is then allocated to a research group, which is then allocated to a student. And not to say anything negative about my research group, my professor, my university, but I think between professors not necessarily seeing the actual financial need that a lot of students have, and some degree of lost in translation, like I referred to before, with funds that are allocated not being used at all. I think if there was more direct communication between graduate students and these funding bodies, then not only could the funding be used better, but more of the existing funding would be used effectively.
I think that's a great point, and I think that should be a major theme in our study. There's just way too much bureaucracy, and it's fine for the universities to come to us and want more money, but they've got to find a way to cut out all these layers that don't add any value to like what the research you're doing.
I agree. I think things just fall through the cracks.
Okay, thank you both. And now online to Mr. Collins for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to both of the witnesses for their appearance today at committee. I'm going to start with Mr. Coulter-John. He touched on the housing issue here in Hamilton, and I think with both of us being from from Hamilton, we know that that wave of migration from the GTA to Hamilton has certainly impacted not just house prices, as he's referenced the challenges that he experienced with his partner, but for the rental market as well, and for students then who are primarily in the Westdale area there in the west end of the city. Looking for affordable accommodation, it becomes a real challenge. And so some of the questions that I've asked previous witnesses related to the same study is around that whole issue of housing and how the federal government can assist. With student housing, I know that Mr. Coulter John, you may be familiar with McMaster's. Right now, I think they're opening this fall a postgrad residence in downtown Hamilton, right across the street or stone's throw from City Hall, and that will house 600 grad students and assist with that whole issue of affordable housing. And I think the university sees it as kind of a carrot.
Monsieur le Président, rappel au règlement.
Chair, a call to order. Point of order, rather. Today's study is for graduate scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships, not issues of housing.
Overall costs and cost of living was brought up by the Conservatives as well. So I think let's continue on.
Yeah, thanks for the help. Mr. Chair, through you, my question to Mr. Coulter John would be, are there ways and means in which we can assist with that affordability issue that he referenced earlier? We've received some consistent recommendations as it relates to increasing the amount of assistance as it relates to scholarships, as it relates to postdoctoral support. But if we're looking at that whole issue related to affordability, and I think my colleague MP Lazon touched on that in terms of sports, in terms of the assistance that we can provide as carrots, so to speak, to be more competitive. How can we assist on the housing file in terms of assisting those that look at wanting to stay in the system, wanting to stay with the university in their postgraduate studies, but they see it as very expensive, I think, as Mr. Coulter John raised in his opening comment, and I'm glad he raised it because it's a consistent theme, not just here at this committee, but at others. How can we assist in terms of providing support for those that are experiencing those high inflationary costs and are finding it very challenging to find an affordable place to live in and around the university precinct?
Thank you. I have seen the graduate building going up in downtown Hamilton. I'm very happy that McMaster has decided to invest in this. And though I haven't looked into it, I can't speak to what their costs are for graduate students who are interested. I think the number one thing kind of comes back to what I spoke about in the previous set of questions with direct funding from bodies to students. I think if it was made clear that there's funding opportunities made for students to apply for, specifically with an emphasis on affordable living or subsidizing housing situations, I think that would be some of the best action that, personally as a grad student, I could see the university and the governing bodies taking.
Thanks, Colin. Mr. Chair, I'll turn to Mr. Johnson, just in terms of the international context. Mr. Johnson, you talked about, you compared the postgraduate support provided in the United States versus what students are receiving here. What does it look like internationally as we turn to Europe or other parts of the world as it relates to financial support? Are those same gaps? I'm assuming those same gaps exist in comparison to, Mr. Coulter John talked, I think, earlier about his Japanese experience. How does it compare to Europe and other parts of the world?
Yes, thank you for the question. It does not look good for us, is the simple answer. If you go to Germany, if you go to the UK, if you go to any of the countries in Scandinavia, if you go to Australia, they are all paying much higher levels, and their entire systems have been increasing in recent years because there is a race to try and own innovation and own discoveries. And so most countries in the G7 are trying to race well above 3% of their total GDP to research and development, with a lot of that going into training of graduate students and postdocs. Canada has been decreasing its investment in research and development. We're now tied for last in the G7 at 1.6%. And so, in wanting to get more industry here, going to an earlier question, it's not going to happen if we are investing half as much as the other countries in the G7 that we're competing against. So we are not competitive.
Thank you. Thank you both. We're out of time, unfortunately. And now to the 2.5-minute round, starting with Mr. Blanchet-Choquin.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about housing and livability. You know how many new investments from the government in the last federal budget? Zero. Absolutely zero. As over the last 20 years, no higher investment in graduate scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships. So I would like to touch on all these topics linked to the current study on graduate scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships. Here's my question for Mr. Johnson. Recommendation 6 of the Bouchard report, which of course was asked by the government, a consultation group to support research. We are calling for competitive level funding for graduate students and postdoctoral fellowships, recognizing that they will be future leaders of scientific innovation. Do you recognize that that would be a minimum to remain competitive on the international stage?
The minimum, if we would like to remain competitive. If we would like to be the leader, it would have to be higher.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, in the Bouchard report, it was also said that the committee, then made up of current scholars, said that the scientific ecosystem is at a breaking point. What do you think?
The system in Canada for research is absolutely in crisis. We are losing our talent every single day, and we are not going to get them back unless we invest majorly in the system, particularly in trying to retain and attract graduate students and postdoctoral scholars, which are the future of innovation and discovery in Canada.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, given that we are the only G7 country to have lost scholars since 2016, what's the message that you have for the government today to ensure that things change and as quickly as possible?
Invest in the future of this country by investing in graduate students and postdocs through scholarships, fellowships, and grants. That's the solution. It's an easy win. The logic's clear, and why they have not seen it is hard to understand, especially when the minister...
Okay, thank you. I think we've got the core part of that answer. I appreciate that in a concise way. And now for 2.5 minutes to Mr. Cannings.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to continue with Dr. Johnson because I think his reply to my last question was cut off when I was talking about how scholarships and fellowships, the federal ones, set the rates, and you were starting to say something about the situation in Manitoba where you are now. I think that's where we left off.
It was a colleague I was speaking to from biochemistry. I'm not going to name the university. I'm not going to say it's within Manitoba because it is actually a system-wide issue across Canada. They were explaining to me that their funding levels, minimum stipend levels before tuition, and all students have to pay tuition with these stipends that they get, was $17,500 for master's students and PhDs in 2023. The same level of the Canada Graduate Scholarship Masters from 2003. They've used that as their bar. And if you look at graduate programs across the country, they're consistently using the tri-agency fellowship levels and scholarship levels to set their minimum bar. They're all shooting for the minimum. So if tri-agency awards, scholarships and fellowships increase, that will put pressure on the universities to increase their stipend levels, and they'll be able to pay for those once we increase the grants as well. And that's a key piece of this.
And you mentioned the fact that tuition has to be paid out of this as well. I think a lot of people forget, when they think $17,500, how could I live on that? They forget that these students have to pay tuition as well on top of that. And I'm just wondering, maybe you could give me an idea of what graduate tuition fees are today. I remember, paying them when I was a student, when my wife was a student. But can you remind us what the standard graduate tuition fees are in Canada today?
They vary from university to university, department to department, but they range roughly between $7,000 and $11,000 on average. After tuition, most students that have a stipend have $15,000 in their pocket after tuition. With that, they have to pay rent, they have to pay food, and most cannot do that in any Canadian city I'm aware of.
Thank you. I'll leave it there.
5 seconds left. You got a lot in a short time, as always. And thank you to our witnesses for being so concise with your answers. If there's other information that you want to expand on, you can definitely send it in writing, and the clerk can include those in your testimonies. So thank you to Colin Coulter-John and Mark Johnson for your testimonies. And that is going to help us with the Government of Canada's Graduate Scholarship and Postdoctoral Fellowship Programs study. We'll suspend briefly now to change our panel. We'll have one witness online and one in person. So I'll suspend for a few minutes, and we'll see you at the top of the hour. And the witness that's online isn't here yet, so we might have to suspend to do a sound check on that witness. But welcome to everybody that's returned and to our witness as well. Welcome back pursuant to Standing Order 10831 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. The committee resumes its study on the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. It's now my pleasure to welcome back Mr. Chad Gaffield, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the U15 Group of Canadian Research Universities. And we'll start with your testimony, and hopefully our other witness will join us in progress. You have 5 minutes, please. The floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. And Chair, I also wish to thank all the members of this committee for allowing me to discuss this topic with you. I consider this to be the key in matters of science and research in Canada today.
Continuing leadership of the Standing Committee in discussion, debate, and policy formulation for science and research in Canada. Your reports and recommendations this past year consistently proposed promising and urgently needed steps forward for Canada in what I think we all agree are turbulent times. My focus today is on the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs, the subject of your next report. My specific aim is to contribute to your report by describing in detail exactly why these scholarships and fellowship programs are so important and so deserving of your close attention. These details are important since they help explain why Canada's scholarship and fellowship programs are at risk of failing Canada's best and brightest, at risk of failing our institutions, companies, and communities, at risk of failing our country's future, and indeed at risk of failing Canada's important role on the world stage. How did we get here? Witnesses thus far have emphasized how graduate students play a vital role in the research and innovation ecosystem, making significant contributions to advancing research and mobilizing knowledge while developing domain expertise and deep, enduring competencies in high demand across society. Witnesses have emphasized how Canada's scholarships and fellowships have generally remained at financial levels set 2 decades ago. Witnesses have described how peer countries are moving in the opposite direction by rapidly increasing their research investments, especially to cultivate the highly qualified talent development that is now globally recognized to be the centerpiece of every robust research and innovation ecosystem. The USA's CHIPS and Science Act more than doubled their national science commitment over 5 years and has increased graduate research fellowships by 50%. Witnesses have emphasized that the government's own advisory panel on Canada's research ecosystem, the Bouchard report, concluded that Canada has been losing ground when it comes to investing in research. The Bouchard report makes clear funding recommendations. Increase funding for the 3 granting agencies by 10% annually for the next 5 years. The report stressed the urgency of acting. The report said, to put it starkly, current support for graduate students, the researchers of tomorrow, is at a breaking point. In this context, my aim today is to ensure that you have the detailed information that explains how we got to this breaking point and what action is needed to get Canada back on track. Let me invite us to focus attention on a series of key issues. Let us focus on the holders of graduate scholarships and fellowships and discuss how exceptional they are as the emerging leaders of their generation. They represent those who have been judged to be Canada's best hope for major steps forward as a country. Let us discuss in detail the rigorous multi-step process that leads to their selection. Let us discuss Canada's objectives in offering these graduate scholarships and fellowships. Let's specify exactly what these awards are designed to accomplish for Canada and why they do set the standard for Canada's entire sciences and research ecosystem. Let's review the meaning and significance for an individual to be chosen for an award, especially for the best and brightest from disadvantaged backgrounds. Let's list the consequences for award winners today of receiving awards at levels set years ago. Then let's consider the consequences for Canada of offering scholarships and fellowships today in the currency of 2003. Mr. Chair, it is these and related issues that are at the heart of our discussions. While all your reports have been highly significant, I am convinced that this report on scholarships and fellowships could have the most significant impact for the long-term benefit of Canada. As you know, this spring's federal budget contained no new investments in research funding for universities. This marks the second consecutive year that the federal government has frozen research funding, and in fact this year is asking for a 3% cut. Scholarships and fellowships will remain at levels set years ago. Inflation will continue eroding research grant funding, and initiatives to innovate across the private, public, and nonprofit sectors will continue to face serious difficulties at a critical time. Canada needs to act now. Many thanks, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And the clerk's still trying to get in touch with our second witness, so we'll start in with our rounds of questions, starting with Gerald Soroka from the Conservatives for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Gaffield for coming today. And I guess I'll start with you then. My first question is, you have talked about how bleak and not a great future we have for science and research here in Canada. Do you feel the government has an understanding of how beneficial science and research is, or a plan even in place to make sure that we have good science and research in Canada?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And as you may know, I'm a long-term university prof, as well as having looked after one of the federal research councils. And what I've been struck by in the last 25 years of active involvement in this sector is the extent to which a commitment to building a better future for Canada in the changed world has really involved a bipartisan commitment to investing in the best and brightest. And we saw this earlier today was mentioned, the Liberal government initiatives in terms of the Canada Graduate Scholarship and so on. That was followed by the Conservative government leadership in terms of the Bantings and the Vanier Fellowships, the Canada Excellence Research Chairs, and so on. So there's been a long-term commitment to say that Canada is going to survive in the 21st century by really having the capital, the human capital, to help us move forward. And what's happened, I think, in the last number of years is that this longstanding commitment has kind of been taken for granted a bit. And we haven't realized that in an international competitive world, given inflation and so on, that we cannot lose focus. This is something that year in and year out must be considered a priority for the country. And so my sense is that a lot of your work here at this committee, and certainly what the witnesses have been saying, is really bringing to our attention that when this a plan of building a Canada based on the kind of human capital rather than simply what we have in the ground, that kind of commitment now is more important than ever. In the changed global context, the world of intangible economy, the world in which all countries are trying to move up the value chain in terms of a higher level economic activities, that we must double down, in fact, on this bipartisan strategy that Canada pursued successfully until fairly recently.
Would you then also say, because you mentioned a few of the, great discoveries that have happened in Canada, that it's sort of more of the approach, it's going to happen whether we fund it or not, and we don't have to really be as concerned about it, but yet other countries, like you say, are doubling or doing more so for science and research, that's probably what they're just doing, is just taking it for granted and not actually willing to invest and make that significant contribution.
That's such an interesting point, Mr. President, because I think, Mr. Chair, one of the issues that is so important is the debate that went on, in fact, in the mid-'90s, a bipartisan debate that said, the world has many, many researchers. Canada is a little country. How about we just kind of import it when we need it? Why do, it's like a make it or buy it kind of argument. We're a little country. Let's just let other people do all the great discoveries and advances and so on, and then we'll just leverage that. The reason why that approach was put to the side was because people said, if we don't have a rich, high-quality research and innovation ecosystem, we won't even know what to buy. We won't even know what's happening in the world, that we need to have our leaders in the game. And yes, we're a small country. We're never going to be able to make all the advances that are needed in the 21st century. But if we don't have people in the game of science and research, we're going to we'll become a colony in this new world of the 21st century. And that was why the investments and a huge effort was made to make Canada not just the kind of intellectual colony in the 21st century, not a place that was just dependent on the rest of the world, but a strong, sovereign, domestically capable country by investing in our best and brightest.
Okay, well, thank you for that. My question then is, the science and research that we are doing right now, do you feel it's of the best quality? Because, there's so much financial pressures that we've heard from other witnesses, having to pay for food, rent, even getting married and trying to afford a home. The challenges there, with the mental state, do you think that they're doing as best as they could be? If they had the financials, do you think they could be doing better?
This is such an important point, and it goes back to the heart of why Canada created the graduate fellowships and postdoctoral fellowships. Exactly why. Why was because they wanted to do exactly what you said. They wanted to give these talented emerging leaders the chance to focus on their work because it was so important. They didn't want them having to scramble to get other jobs on the side. They didn't want them the distractions. And one of the great advantages, and certainly in my own case, and you've heard this many times, of having that signal from the federal government that what you're doing is so important, and here's some financial stability to allow you to do it and focus on it and do it at that high level. And what's happening now, since that financial stability is not there anymore, and so you have a situation in which the ambition, the objectives of these programs can't be met because they're not allowing the award winners to actually focus on their research, to actually push ahead because they're having to scramble on the side to make ends meet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. And now over to Mr. Souza for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony, Mr. Catfield. So I'm listening to a number of witnesses, yourself and others, and we're all sensitive to the complexity of the issue. It's not just more money for these scholarships. There's a host of issues that are at play to support students. I have nephews. I got PhD students in the family. They all struggle like most kids do, like we did as kids, trying to get ourselves established and to enable us to have some of our life benefits. And then the monetization of some of what their work will do will have huge payoffs. So part of this is also the monetization of IP and enabling us to scale, enabling us to retain investments in Canada to support these innovations and these students ultimately. So to hear from one side, to throw money at it on one single issue, not giving consideration to all the other things that are being done to support the system is unfair. What we need to do is prioritize and be efficient and effective at attracting the students, the talent, the minds, because that's priority one over everything else. And I congratulate you for so much of what you've done in this respect. So tell me, how are we as a government, as not just the federal government, the private sector, all of us, even in the provincial sector, supporting some of this effort?
Well, thank you so much for that question, because you implied in it is the crucial point in that, and again, my years as leading the federal granting council at Social Science and Humanities, what we found was investing in research, the guaranteed ROI, the guaranteed return is that cultivation of talent, the people we need. It's guaranteed. So when you think about it for a country, and this was the debate from the mid-90s on, when you think about it, what can we invest in today that has a guaranteed return? Not many things. But in fact, in the research world, that's exactly what happens. So you fund research projects, the people involved are all going to have their human capital, their intellectual capital raised in ways that's going to serve that society. So one of the key aspects is, and you're absolutely right in terms of pointing to the importance of an ecosystem approach. We can't just do a little bit over here. And while I'm a huge proponent of saying we must have scholarships and fellowships at an internationally competitive level, that is just as sort of the pinnacle of a much larger effort that we need. And we need to be able to view this entire ecosystem in a holistic way. And why? Because we need that development of talent across our sectors, across the country, and able to engage internationally. Because at the end of the day, that is the ROI that is going to save us in terms of building a better future.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And enabling to attract some of those students to stay in Canada. And we do have a lot of interest in students remaining in Canada and doing the work they do. Some of the concerns are they being able to, having affordability issues. So we have a whole suite of other opportunities to support them in that regard too, which is not being taken into consideration in their line of questioning. But we have to recognize that there's a much bigger issue. And I want us, and that's why this committee has been formed, to support research, to support innovation, to support Canada's sovereignty and protection in this space, because it's critical as we go forward. So in the Bouchard report, some of your colleagues have been calling me already. We've had discussions. We know that's a priority system. We know that's something that the government is looking at seriously. So thank you for that. And I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if I have more time. 2 minutes, even better. Tell me, what are some of the supports that students are receiving from outside of government in regards to what they do?
There's a great question, and implied in what you said, and in fact, you said a few things there that are really important. First of all, what attracts a student here from another country, and what keeps one of our students from going somewhere else? There are a few factors involved. Obviously, the quality of the research environment. And Canada has been investing over the last 25 years to have research facilities that are at the right level in terms of that. We've been investing in terms of having leading professors who are able to be supervisors for students, and that's a key component. But we also have, and I think you were implying this, that we have a kind of country that I think is super attractive for some of the world's leading leaders of the emerging generation. We have an inclusive society. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are committed to being an inclusive society. We're a society, I think, that in many ways corresponds to the ideal of a 21st century world, a world in which we support a kind of way of living and a way of being that I think is really recognized around the world. So we have, I think, in terms of the academic world, in terms of our communities, I think we have some of the real makings of being a magnet, both for our students to stay and for others around the world. At the same time, though, we cannot send the message to our own students and to the world that we don't really think they're a good investment at an international level. They do need to eat. They need to pay for housing. They need all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're at time, but thank you both for that. And now over to Mr. Blanchard-Jonca for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And hello to our witnesses. It's a pleasure to see you again, Mr. Gaffield. I think this is perhaps your 5th visit to us today. It's always a pleasure to have you. I think the situation is pretty clear. The situation has been described. I'm looking at what we were saying on the 5th of December last. You said that the situation was dire when it came to investments. And there are some terms that really struck me when I reread your testimony, you see. You represent the U15 group of Canadian research universities. You receive about 85% of the funding, so that's an awful lot of money, millions of dollars. So it's a serious matter to hear from you. And you said that the stagnation of funding of scholarships and fellowships showed a certain level of inattention and maybe even indifference. I was saying, well, perhaps the government has simply misunderstood the situation, but now it seems to be worse than that. I'm quite certain that the government is taking for granted our scientists, our researchers, the university sector, people who work in education at the higher levels, at the graduate levels. I find this aberrant, distressing, that a government should not understand how important it is to invest in research these days. You know, the decisions we make today, investments we make today, of course, it mightn't be, a big political drum to beat on, but it will be terribly important 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. What I would like to hear you on today, Mr. Garfield, is first, we have to keep in mind that there are 6,000 graduate scholarships in Canada. However, 240,000 students, so not a high percentage of them receive allocation stipends. Moreover, 80% of higher level students receive their funding because they're working for scientists, other scientists. So the Bouchard Commission report requested by the government underscores that graduate and postdoctoral funding leads to very few students being funded, and otherwise, unless we do something about it, there will be a brain drain. As you doubtlessly know, that we are the only country in the G7 that has lost scientists and graduate students since 2016. So, simply providing more funding sounds simple, but yes, it's essential if we really want to ensure that we have scientists in the future. Thank you very much. There's no doubt, indeed, that we have reached a point at which we can say that the quality of the research ecosystem in Canada, and innovation as well, is, looks like we're taking it for granted. It's all well and good. We've got the best universities here. All's well and good. There's no doubt, of course, that we are very proud of the quality of our students and of our scientists. That said, we likely haven't made clear enough that, consider the number of people in Canada who have graduate education, higher level education. I mean, let me mention that at the OECD, we come in 28th. When told this, people, fall back in their seats. What? Canada? 28th?
Done, and I think your committee has been a huge solution to that, is we haven't spent enough time really keeping track. I think we built a good system, and then we said, okay, it's fine, we don't have to worry about it. And meanwhile, the world kept changing, and we didn't sufficiently track the fact that we've fallen to a place where if you look at our educational kind of structure in the country, it does not correspond to the kind of high-value economy society that we need in the 21st century. We can't imagine ourselves building this high value economy and society, this world of intangible, this world of really adding value, building sustainable, just future. We can't do that with a kind of investment that makes us look like we're on the path to being a kind of new colony in the 21st century, because we'll be so dependent on other countries. And as you know, when they look at us, it's going to be easy for them to just continue to see critical minerals now, or see things in the ground, rather than seeing us as we were talking about earlier, as a sovereign country with domestic capability that is really at a place in the world stage.
Je reviens aux questions. Merci.
Back to my question. Thank you. That does give us a good overview of the situation, our being a colony. Now, consider the Americans. They have doubled their principal investment in science program, the CHIPS and Science Act, $200 billion in fundamental research. If you're a young scientist, considering your future, what would you do? That is the problem. The message being given by the United States at this point, and there are other countries doing the same. Japan, for example, are very remarkable support for science there. The message is that we're serious about the 21st century being a century of research and science, and we'll go at this the right way. Now people are saying, the future of Canada, my future here or elsewhere, we need to pay attention to how they're thinking about this.
Call us for time, but thank you for the response. Before we go to Mr. Cannings, we do have Dr. Murphy joining us from the Ontario Tech University, but I think in fairness, if we can just go through this round of questioning, and then we'll briefly suspend to get a sound check done, and then we'll continue on with his presentation, which will be a 5-minute presentation. So Mr. Cannings, over to you.
Well, thank you, and thanks again to Dr. Gaffield for being here once again. It's always a pleasure to have you and your expertise before us. And thank you for also pointing out that you feel that this study is, could have the most significant impact of any of our studies so far on the Canadian science and research scene. Mr. Sousa made the statement, all students struggle. Well, just to counter that, I would say I didn't struggle when I was a grad student. I was lucky enough to get an NRC scholarship. I predate the tri-councils in my career, and it was plenty for me to have room and board and all the things necessary. I didn't have to worry about working outside the university. But just because you have a long history of working in the university scene, in the research scene at the national level, just wondering if you could comment at kind of the higher level of overall government investment in universities. Both provincial and federal seems to have declined over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And one of the side effects of that, of course, is the increasing tuition that students have to pay on top of room and board. I'm just wondering if perhaps you could spend a little time talking about that and how that plays into this whole question that we're talking about today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. That's such an important question because, as we know, in the Canadian structure, the dossier of building a robust research and innovation system is, in fact, a federal-provincial partnership. What is so important about the federal role, though, is its leadership role. If you look at the history of Canada, it is federal initiatives that sent the message across the country that it is a case of national sovereignty, national domestic capability, that we as a country are going to move forward. And it was really federal leadership that has been consistently key, whether you go back to think about the National Research Councils or the creation of the federal granting councils and so on. Those were the ones that started to move Canada from being a domestic, a real intellectual colony as late as the 1960s. We've told this story before. In the 1960s, almost all profs, 80% of profs in Canadian universities had been trained outside Canada. We had a relatively small graduate system and so on. But it was federal leadership that sent the word to the entire country that we have to change. The later 20th century is not. And then that was doubled down on in the mid-90s in the recent era. So, I mean, I think the national importance, domestic security, sovereignty, all of that, it's the federal leadership that drives. And if provinces, I think, see to some extent that it's not a top federal priority for making a better future, then that is really not going to help us.
Right, well, thank you for that. And I just wanted to add that scholarship I got in the mid-'70s made me decide to stay in Canada because I was really looking at going elsewhere for my grad studies. And that scholarship allowed me to stay here. And I'm also happy to hear that your organization, U15, the big universities, is embracing the Bouchard report, from what I can tell. That calls for an annual 10% increase in the Tri-Council grants. But you just mentioned in passing a 3% cut. And I've heard this too from NSERC, and I just wondered if you could expand on what the risk of that is.
And again, it goes back to our earlier, thank you very much for that question, and it goes back to our earlier discussion in terms of us paying attention, staying focused on this, because in the most recent budget, all departments were told to cut by 3%. It was like a little line in there somewhere. And we are exceedingly concerned that not only did that budget not increase Tri-Council funding and so on, but it gave a 3% cut at the worst time possible. And so I think we need to investigate this. And my understanding is that the situation is in fact worse than maybe we have been thinking. And again, it's part of our responsibility and your committee. You know, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't even have a committee like this set up. It was so kind of taken for granted that, yes, everything's going along well, that we didn't have this. So your committee, I think, has played a key role in ensuring that we start paying attention and don't just take for granted. You know, we just can't take this for granted. We have to see it as the way in which Canada is going to have a bright future.
Thank you.
We'll suspend just for a minute, but nobody leave your places. We'll just do a quick sound check with the interpreters, and we'll resume momentarily. Chancellor of that university, and we're looking forward to your comments. If you could give us your comments for the next 5 minutes, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to join you. If I could start, Ontario Tech University acknowledges the lands and the people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, which is covered under the Williams Treaty, and we're situated on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, a branch of the Greater Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. I'm here to speak to you about an issue that impacts Canadians' competitiveness on the international stage. As you know, we fall behind our peer nations on R&D spend at 1.55% of GDP. With the latest OECD average, the average is at 2.7%, the US at 3.45%, Finland at 2.9%. The closest countries to our spend are Estonia and Portugal, and Canada's peers are recognizing the opportunities of investing in research and have made significant commitments to increase support. As you know, in the United States, the CHIPS and Science Act includes over $200 million in new funding for fundamental research. And without similar ambition, Canada risks falling behind, far behind the OECD average. The government's own advisory panel concluded that Canada will continue falling behind our peers if we fail to increase core funding for the granting agencies and support our early career research talent. Canada must step up, show ambition, and implement these recommendations for the panel's excellent work. In Canada, most of that spend is still by government, and that tells of some of the issue that we have in the private sector in the R&D spend. At the center of R&D is people, of course, and highly qualified personnel. These are our doctoral and all graduate students, doctoral fellowships and grad scholarships, and generally have largely remained stagnant over the last 20 years. The lucky few students who receive these awards, these have to be topped up with Tri-Council funding from their supervisors, their principal investigators, but even the Tri-Council has been frozen, so in real dollars, we are losing ground. The value and number of Canada graduate scholarships and doctoral fellowships have not increased in 2 decades, halving in real value. Addressing the stagnation in scholarship funding is an important pillar in the broader effort to tackle the stagnation of funding over the last 20 years. Graduate programs in Canadian universities are one of the key pipelines for talent, which is fundamental for economic growth in Canada. Investing in the support of grad students through the Canada Graduate Scholarship Program and the fundamental science research funding provided by the tri-agencies will be critical to retaining talent in Canada and driving innovation. Graduate studies in public universities are a fundamental means by which Canadians invest in themselves, while provincial governments are increasingly subsidizing learning opportunities outside of universities. We build capacity in this country by investing in education. Education is how we transform ourselves, by extension, the world around us, our nation, and the globe. Investing in our public institutions is capacity building and citizenship cultivation. Inflation, and especially the increase in rental accommodations, has very significantly affected the cost of living for grad students. Tri-Council doctoral fellowships, including Canada Graduate Scholarships, have not increased over the past 2 decades. Adjusted for inflation, the amount of funding for students for the tri-agencies and the Canadian Foundation for Innovation is at the lowest it's been since 2000, and it's set to decline even more drastically as the funding commitment following the Naylor report is coming to an end. The research granting agencies are the bedrock of our research ecosystem in Canada, as you know, and now is the time to renew the government's commitment to fundamental research by increasing funding for the granting agencies. Graduate level funding is fundamental to recruit and retain high quality students in Canadian graduate programs, and universities are a catalyst for economic activity, employing nearly 410,000 people and contributing more than 48 billion to Canada's GDP across the country. We're conducting more than 16 billion in research every year, fostering new and innovative ideas that will help us solve problems for today, more importantly for tomorrow, from everything from climate change to pandemics. Graduate studies are a key element of talent acquisition from around the globe. While Canada's funding for graduate students has largely remained stagnant, countries such as Finland and many others that we've heard today are subsidizing graduate students with free tuition until completion of a first master's anyway, and funding to ensure their students can focus exclusively on their studies. As you know, more students are now part-time or working part-time jobs while studying merely to make ends meet. Tri-Council funds overwhelmingly, an estimated 80%, go ultimately to support students, and increasing Tri-Council funds overall for this reason directly flows to students. The Bouchard report highlighted that it's critically important that core funding of the granting councils be increased, which is why we were disappointed that we did not see such funding in the budget of 2023. Canada must act in the fall economic statement to ensure the welfare of the federal research ecosystem. Without increased funding, more students need to take on additional jobs. The unintended consequences increases the time it takes them to complete their requirements for their degree, and obviously the brain drain. Ontario Tech seeks to democratize graduate education. Historically, graduate studies have been associated with the study of privileged few.
I think we'll have to wrap up your opening comments at that point. Thank you. Maybe you can work the rest into some answers. We're just watching time. We're going to start up our second round, and starting with Ben Lobb for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to split my time with Corey Tucker. My first question is for Mr. Gaffield. Good to see you. Our previous witness, Mr. Corner John, I believe his name was, from McMaster, highly accomplished individual, outlined his current situation, has his money coming in from his work, but also from a second job. My question to him was, and he seemed to agree, and our thoughts aligned a bit, there seems like there's a lot of bureaucracy in the university system, and there's a lot of dollars that touch a lot of hands before it actually gets to the people that are doing the research. Does that system need to be completely changed so that we cut out all the bureaucracy and it goes right to the person needing the money? And do we need to look at bringing in companies that have a vested interest in these individuals after they're done their school?
Thank you very much for that question. And in fact, it's a question that I would say touches every aspect of all our institutions across the private, public, nonprofit sectors. One of the things that I think that's happened in the later 20th century was an effort to build into our organizations the kind of frameworks and structures for accountability, for responsibility, that would ensure that everything worked at the highest standards. And there's no doubt that in doing that, at times, we've haven't sought the most efficient ways of doing that across all sectors. And so what I think we're all doing now, my sense is that we're doing it in every company, government, institution that I've been close to, is finding more efficient ways of doing what we're doing. The Bouchard report, for example, was certainly down that path. Can we coordinate better? Can we be more efficient? Can we simplify and so on? And I think this is a shared pursuit everywhere, and one that definitely will continue to be important as we try to optimize every dollar.
Yes, my question's for Mr. Murphy online. You talked about the cost of living and some of the challenges. Do you have any stories of students or personal stories from students of the hardship that the cost of living crisis has caused them?
Certainly, yeah. We've got a number of students in various faculties who the norm is to be working one part-time job and a whole lot who are working two. I finished my studies 28 years ago and only received about $2,500 less than what is a Shirk doctoral fellowship today. So in real dollars, obviously, these are individuals who are falling behind, and they need to seek that extra employment just to make ends meet. And of course, that prolongs their time in graduate studies and them not getting out into the workforce as we would want them to.
You talked about the policies we're on the wrong track, and many Canadians believe that we need a change in government, or we're going to carry on to a much more difficult place for our country. You mentioned that we need to change our approach on this, but if we don't change, what does the next 5 or 10 years looks like in Canada if we carry on this way?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And through the chair, my response would be that I would be very concerned about Canada falling further behind our OECD colleagues. I referenced, the countries that we are closest to. I think that what we see is the US accelerating. We see Japan accelerating. We see countries like Finland accelerating. Now is the time to be investing in post-secondary education, and we are an outlier. Certainly that's both provinces and the federal government, but the federal government plays a really important leadership role in setting the tone for research and development in this country.
Thank you so much for your testimony here today.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move to Ms. Metledge-Diab. Over to you for another 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome to our witnesses. Dr. Gaffield, you mentioned, that we need to attract the best and the brightest of students, and we all agree. We all agree that we have to do that. You also mentioned how Canada has invested in the quality of research environment, the infrastructure that we have, quite frankly, across the country. But I know in my own province of Nova Scotia, I see that every day and every week in the institutions that we have and the leading professors that we have, in the supervisors. And yes, I have to say, I definitely agree with you in that we are a committed country, committed people to be an inclusive society, which tends to bring us the talent from around the globe that they want to come and stay and learn and contribute to Canada and stay here. You also gave, and I appreciate that because I feel that that this committee is part of the solution. And I think I'm going to agree with you. I was very proud when this committee was formed, and for us members who are inaugural members of the Science and Research Committee when we started on this in the fall of 2021, because in fact, it had not existed before. And I do believe that we have been able to raise awareness and shed a lot of lights on many topics, one of which is exactly the one we're dealing with today. I would say that for many, sometimes some things have fallen through the cracks, and this, I suspect, is definitely one of those. And we've also talked about how it's a holistic approach. It's not simply one item in terms of increasing the graduate scholarships or doing whatever. It's going to take it's a holistic approach to solving the problem. And I think Dr. Nimmer and many others have sort of mentioned that. I think a lot of the issues as well are because of the cost of living and the challenges that many face. So I guess with the few minutes that we have remaining from you've been a professor, you've been somebody who has led one of those councils, and in your current role with the U15, what is sort of the most important thing that you can sort of give us to finalize our work here in the committee? Because
Thank
not
you.
one answer is going to do the job here.
Thank you so much. Let me raise 2 points because you mentioned 2 things that I think are so key. And one is how access for graduate students to funding through the research grants or through graduate scholarships and fellowships is really the way in which we're going to pursue an inclusive society. Because as you know, those from disadvantaged families, those from disadvantaged backgrounds are going to be the most easily discouraged by not having access and having that support. Clearly, we don't want a system in which the only Canadians that are allowed or able to continue into graduate school are those that come from advantaged families. We want to tap the entire pool of talent, and then in fact that was why the scholarship and fellowship programs were created, to really level the playing field and give everyone a chance. So in building an inclusive society, we have to understand that being able to make it financially viable for the talented students is absolutely key. We can't make it we can't make it an elite kind of preordained system. That is not what Canada is trying to do. The second thing, though, you alluded to is the added advantage for our students of being able to work in research projects. You know, there are 5 things quickly. 1, learning about how to pursue original thinking, learning about creativity, learning about critical thinking, how to actually assess whether different strategies work in terms of advancing knowledge, sophisticated research skills, how to deal with obstacles when you meet them in your work, how to work in teams, which most of them will do when they finish graduate school. They'll work in teams. How to manage projects, how to balance accountability and efficiency and so on with the kind of discovery impulses that are needed, that creativity piece. So it's that rich array of those deep competencies that I think are required, which explains why we need to financially ensure that the talented Canadians have a chance to pursue graduate work, and that we can become a magnet internationally and thereby build Canada as a successful 21st century country.
Great. Thank you very much. And now for 2.5 minutes to Monsieur Blanchet-Chonka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Garfield, a prior witness, Mr. Johnson, said that 38% of PhD students leave Canada and work outside the country, mostly in the United States, looking for better conditions in countries where governments have made the decision to invest in R&D. 38%, that's a serious brain drain. The consequences, and I quote you, is that Canada may become a colony, a scientific colony in a sense. We look for high-level students, we create them, and then we let them leave. And then we must depend on foreign countries to access technology and innovations to lead us into the future. Now, Marie-Victorin, one of the founders of ACFAS in Quebec, said in 1925, about a century ago, I'd like to share this. Sovereignty in areas of knowledge is necessary to ensure sovereignty in territory and economics. We will only be a nation when we no longer depend on foreign experts, capital, intellects, and we will become masters of our own destiny through our knowledge in order to be able to use our own resources here in our country. What do you think of that? In my opinion, the very heart to core of Canada that we have created in the 20th and 21st century is the priority that we give to training, to education, public education, for society as a whole. Why? Because investing in knowledge, in this key element of our society and publicly, is of the highest importance, because that's the basis. What gives us a starting point in order to create a fair society, a public system in a broad way. So we created the public university system in Canada during the first century of our existence, and we used to import everyone. In fact, we imported all the specialists, higher level graduate studies, and so on. Everyone had been trained outside the country to be able to teach here. We finally put our foot down and said, no, we need to be able to create this capacity here in Canada. Now the bar is even higher in the 21st century. Human capital is really 100% of the game. It's the skin in the game.
Cannings, bring us home for 2.5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, and thanks for Dr. Murphy for joining us from Ontario Tech University. Just going to pick up on something you said there about how Ontario Tech seeks to democratize education. You know, we often hear that education is the great equalizer. And yet here we have a situation where, because of the stagnation of these scholarships and fellowships and other supports that students are getting for the last 20 years, we are now selecting against students from lower income families and other backgrounds that simply can't access education at these costs. And I'm just wondering if you could comment on that, about why this issue in the science and research world of Canada is perhaps the most critical at this moment.
Yes, thanks for the question. I think it's a really important one, and coming to you from the Durham region of the suburbs of Toronto, I can tell you that we disproportionately have students that are new Canadians that come from first in family. They're the first in their families to attend educational institutions. We do not have a lot of entitlement or virtually none. And I can tell you, in those situations, having just come through convocation last week, I hear stories all the time of our young people wanting to go into graduate programs, needing to take time off to get enough money in order to fund those studies. So it's having a very real impact. The future of our country is surrounds me, and I'm uplifted by those students every day. And what I think we need to do is figure out a way in which we can understand and invest in their futures, understanding it's the collective Canadian future. We're not moving electric vehicles further. We're not doing things with quantum. We're not tackling climate change unless we have all of the most brilliant minds. And if we're truly committed to diversity, we have to see that there's an economic lens on this.
And just to finish quickly, you also, I think, mentioned that this money flows directly to students. So it would sort of bypass some of the bureaucracy. Mr. Lobb was mentioning that this money goes to the people who need it and stays within the community.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think that universities are fair game for saying that we have too much bureaucracy. But on the research front, it's a critical point to understand that research comes into universities as restricted funds. It is for use from, and it comes from the Tri-Council solely for the principal investigator that won that. When it comes in for students under scholarships, it can solely be used for scholarships. It is not like tuition funding or grant funding, which we have a greater discretion over.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you both of our witnesses for inspirational testimony and great answers to our questions. I know that that's going to help us in our study. And so thank you for taking the time out of, as you mentioned, convocation season is a busy time for both of you. And so thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
If there's any more information, of course, please submit it into the clerk in writing, and we'll make that part of our review as we go forward. So a couple of reminders before we adjourn that witness lists are due at the end of the day today. for the Canadian, or the study on Canadian research partnerships with entities connected to the People's Republic of China. We'll be beginning that study on Tuesday, so if you can get those witness lists in by the end of the day today. And also we'll be meeting on Thursday, June 15th, to resume this study on the Government Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. We have our last witnesses lined up for 2 panels for that. So is it the will of the committee to adjourn? Nobody's fighting me? Okay, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much.